There we go. Boom. Got a little belly on him. He's been eating. That'll work. Nice bright bluebird day. Why not throw a buzzbait? Clear water. Hey folks, Glenn May here with BassResource.com, and today I want to talk to you about fishing buzzbaits. Yeah, buzzbaits, great lures to use when fish are biting. They're aggressive. Top water is exhilarating bite. It absolutely is. It's so much fun. This one here, this is what I'm talking about, a buzzbait. That's what they look like. Now this skirt, you guys may want to know what that skirt is. It's a Lumiflex skirt. They're hard to find, but I like using skirts on. I do a lot of kind of modifications on these baits. I'll show you what that's all about here in a minute, but I'm going to give you a brain dump here of all the stuff I know about buzzbaits. I've been fishing them for about 3 or 4 decades now, and there's more to them than just chunking and winding. So let's start off first of all with the gear. You got to have the right gear when you're fishing buzzbaits. So this here is a 7'4" medium heavy power, moderate action rod. That's what I like for throwing these. And moderate is, the reason being is because buzzbaits are relatively light. They're kind of hard to throw. So moderate action allows you to fling that bait out there. Plus it's got the backbone to set the hook. These have big heavy hooks on them, thick hooks, and it's hard to set the hook if you got a wimpy rod. So a medium heavy rod with a moderate action tip is exactly what you want. Paired with that is a fast action reel. Fast speed, you need that to get up on plane and retrieve it. And then with the line I'm using today, this here line is monofilament. I like monofilament a lot because it floats. It helps get the bait up on plane. But if I'm throwing a lot of heavy color, what I'll do is I'll change up to braid, and I'll use Seaguar, at least 40-pound braid. Maybe 30-pound or 50-pound braid, depending on what I'm throwing. I like the 50-pound when you're fishing heavier cover. It's buoyant, so it aids in getting the bait up on plane and keeping it up on the surface better. If you're fishing a lighter lure, then I might go down to 25 or 30-pound braid. So that's what I use for throwing it. Let's talk a little bit about the baits themselves. Well, the most popular ones are the 3/8 ounce. Sometimes 1/4 ounce. This is a 3/8 ounce. That's what I fish the most for most conditions. If I'm fishing, say in the springtime, right after the spawn, I'll go a little bit smaller. I'll use a 1/4 ounce to match the bait fish, and then as summer progresses, I'll go back up to that 3/8 ounce bait. I might even use an 1/8 ounce in just right after the spawn. Real light bait. In windy conditions, yeah, it's harder to cast. It's harder to control the bait. It's harder to get it the accuracy. So then I'll go up to a 1/2 ounce bait at that time. And that way you can get it out through the wind. You can get it, the wind won't catch it and throw it somewhere where you're not aiming. 1/2 ounce works really well for that. But for the most part, I'm throwing 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce buzz baits. There we go, finally.
Buzz bait. You're gonna make me throw a buzz bait, aren't you? He is gonna make me throw a buzz bait.
I am.
Hey, look at that, finally. Look at that.
Look at that. 2:30 in the afternoon on a bright sunny day.
Yep.
Can't beat that. Don't ever let them fool you into thinking that, oh, you can only do it in the early morning hours or in the evening. Proof positive. Now there's several different designs of buzz baits out there. This is that single blade. Look how big that blade is. It's a big blade. That enables it to come across the water at a slower speed. A bigger blade allows you to get up on plane and kind of go as slow as you can across the water. And a lot of times that's the best way to fish a buzz bait, is as slow across the water as you can. But another times the fish really want you to move it quick. And then I'd get a smaller size blade. But a lot of the blades come in different colors. You've got gold, you've got silver, you have a lot of different, there's actually about every color in the rainbow, really. There's a lot of different ones you can get. But I just stick with silver or gold. But there's a couple other designs too to look at. For example, there's the double buzzer blade, right? Pretty wacky looking. This gets up on plane easier, and you can fish it real slow because it's got both blades to keep it on plane. For me, I don't catch as many fish with a double blade buzzbait, but when I do catch one, it's usually big. So this is a really good bait to throw. Say, for example, you've got a limit on a tournament and you want to start calling out and get bigger fish. That's when I'd start throwing something like this. Or if you just want to target big bass, good bait to throw. Another type, some of these that come with double buzzards on the line, triple. Sometimes this will be a triple version. There's a lot out there, but I tend to stick to those, and then this kind too. This is a clacker, right? It's got a clacker on it. What that does, the blade hits it. So I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it goes across the water and it makes a lot of ruckus, a lot of noise. It can attract bass from further distance away. This is a great bait to use in the middle of summer when bass are super aggressive. You're throwing across big flats of submerged weeds and vegetation where you need to call them from long distances or dig them out of the cover. Something like this with a clacker works really well. This is a white and chartreuse skirt, white skirt, and a black skirt. Those are basically the three you need. You really don't need to get too crazy on these. I think the bass are really going after the commotion that this blade is causing more than the color. But even so, when I'm fishing at night, I'll use black, so I got a good solid silhouette going across the surface. When the fish is looking up, they see a solid silhouette, so I'll use a black skirt then. Otherwise, I'm using white most of the time. But where to throw it? Best place to throw it and best times to throw it. I usually fish it anytime the water temperature is above 55 degrees. That's a good time to throw it. I know it works when it's colder out. I have one stuck in my brain for sure. When I fished on New Year's Eve, water temp was 42 degrees, and I saw what appeared to be bass busting bait fish on the surface, which is crazy. They don't do that during the winter time. Don't they read the same books we do? They weren't supposed to be there. But I tied on a buzzbait and went out there and threw, and sure enough, boom, I caught a fish on a buzzbait on New Year's Day. So they can work. I'm not saying they're as absolutes, but when the water temp's above 55 degrees, that's when you get more bites on a buzzbait. And I like to fish it over submerged weed beds. That's my favorite place. I mean, there's milfoil, hydrilla, where it hasn't broke the surface, or maybe stump fields or sparse lily pads. That's a great place to throw a buzzbait. You can throw it out over it, call fish from long distances. If you got these vast flats with all this on here, you can just start casting at the 10 o'clock, the 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1, just methodically fish your way as you go down over a flat and just keep making those casts like that, and you're going to catch a lot of fish just by being that methodical. As far as the retrieve is concerned, it's pretty straightforward. Cast out, bring it back, right? Okay, there's a little bit more to it than that. Two things. First of all, you've got to get the blade moving first, and that is the main trick in the retrieve. A lot of times what you do with the bait, you cast it out there, it hits the water, and then you turn the reel handle and start retrieving. I like to throw, well, the best way to throw a buzzbait is when you throw it out there, you actually turn the reel handle just as it hits the surface or before it hits the surface, and turn it really quick. This is where you need that fast gear ratio to get that blade moving and get it up on the surface. Once it's moving, then you can slow down the best you can. Keep that rod tip up about the 10 o'clock position to keep that bait up on the surface, and slow down as much as you can while keeping that blade above the surface, and bring it on back. That is the normal retrieve that you catch a lot of bass on. It's that cast. This is the reason why I like using bait casting gear. You can thumb that reel and get it almost to stop. You can put your thumb on the reel as you transfer hands mid-air and get the reel handle going right when it hits the water. It's very, very difficult to accomplish that with the spinning gear. Okay, you can try, but a lot of times what happens is you get a little loop in the line, and your next cast you get a big bird's nest. So it's very difficult to cast this way with spinning. This is why I like using bait casting gear. But other retrieves, if they're not going after with a nice slow steady retrieve, speed it up. That's the first thing I would do. Try different varied speeds. I like to fish slow because the fish, it gives them time to find the bait. It gets them in the, it stays longer in the strike zone, and they're more apt to get it when they blow up on it. If you're reeling it really fast, you have a lot more missed strikes. But sometimes that's the way the fish want, is a fast retrieve. Another thing is when you're just retrieving it, give it a little pop, give it a little jerk. Just give it a little erratic movement, and sometimes that elicits a strike. A fish will be following. You give it a little pop, boom, they'll just clock it all of a sudden.
Whoa!
Whoa.
He missed.
There he goes. Now he got it.
He came
back.
all the way out of the water.
Came back and hit it twice.
He came all the way out of the water for that. That was awesome.
He missed it, turned around, and
hit it again. Nice looking buzzbait fish all day long. Face full of buzzbait. Come here, baby. Oh boy. Let me see if I can get you up. I don't know how I got you hooked. I'm trying. Kiddo. Nice little guy. He came all the way out of the water. Holy smokes. That just shocked me. Okay, go guy. Go have fun. Evidently, I got the fin.
There's a lot of different modifications people do. One of it is this. You bend it. You literally, see the wire's bent. You literally bend the wire to one side, and you can curve it. And you can get it up underneath docks, for example, instead of alongside docks. It's a great way to get up underneath things, overhanging trees. Sometimes these baits, when you cast them, they're coming back like that on their side, one side or the other. Then you want to take the blade part and twist it one side or the other. Not the arm, but the blade. And that's just like tuning a spinnerbait. If you've ever done that, move that blade one way or the other. You can tune it so it'll run straight. A couple other modifications people like to do. I know some people like to hang them by their antennas on their car while they're driving down the freeway so they get it to squeak, make a lot more noise. Some people like to put the rivet into some kind of acid of some sort to make them squeal, make more noise. You can do that. I don't go to that extent, but some people like that. But putting trailers on the bait, that's one thing I will do. So for example, I like to use the Yum Pulse Minnow. I'll take a 3.5 inch Yum Pulse Minnow like this. I'll take the skirt off and put this on. It gives it an entirely different profile, and a lot of times you get a lot more strikes that way. Just making it, they don't like the skirt, but they want something like this and it looks realistic to them. I'll use the 3.5 inch from spring to midsummer, and then from midsummer through fall I'll up it and go to the 4.5 inch to match the growth of the bait fish. Another trailer that I'll put on here is the Yum the tip-toed. Here it is. This color here, by the way, is pearl white. That's the color I use most of the time when I'm doing it with the tip-toed. I like the Summer Gill and also watermelon with red flake. But the Summer Gill works really well. This tip-toed, you put that on instead of the skirt, and that does a couple things. Number one, it adds more buoyancy. It's easier for it to get up on plane and float on the water and stay on the water. It's got these little kickers in the back, so it creates even more of a commotion. And you can bring it back a lot slower because of the buoyancy. It's a great modification to make. It gives it a bigger profile. Plus it adds weight to the bait. So now you can throw it further distances, be more accurate with it. You can throw it in the wind better. Great modification to make to these baits.
There you go. Woohoo! Fish on a chatterbait. Or, sorry.
Buzzbait.
Buzzbait! Buzzbait fish.
Come here.
Buzzbait. Ooh, that's a nice one too.
Here we go.
Really nice one.
You notice the sun's out?
Yeah.
No clouds.
Bright sky.
Yeah.
No wind.
Don't stop fishing these just because the sun came out. Boy, I got them right in the roof of the mouth.
Right where you're supposed to catch
There
it.
you go.
Nice
Alrighty,
little guy.
let you go. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the hookup. A lot of people, they have problems with hookup ratio. The bass will come up, they'll miss it. It happens a lot. They miss it. You set the hook, there's no fish. A lot of times what people do is they take a trailer hook and they add it to their buzz bait. Trailer hook basically is just this. That's just this little thing. I'll just show you how it looks like. It's got a little rubber. Yeah, it's got a little piece of surgical rubber on it. You got a little trailer hook right here on the end. It's this little stinger that you add at the end of it. And this little rubber piece here keeps it from going past the barb that stays on the hook. Okay? A lot of people like to put a trailer hook on there to get those fish that blast at it and miss it. I don't. That's the only buzzbait I have with a trailer hook on it. I don't like to use them because you're fishing it over weeds or vegetation and you get hung up more often with that trailer hook. Instead, really need to focus on your hook set when the fish hits the lure. So what I mean by that is a lot of times the fish will come up, it'll blast the lure, and what you see is this explosion, and if you're not ready for it, there's that knee-jerk reaction, just boom, set the hook right away. And that's when you pull the bait away from the fish. And how that happens, the fish blows up through the water, his mouth is open, your lure's here, he doesn't have it yet. You react to that explosion, you pull it away from him, and he misses it. Okay, it's kind of like Lucy taking the ball away from Charlie Brown, right? What you need to do is while you're retrieving this bait, be ready for that explosion. Keep telling yourself, don't set the hook, don't set the hook, don't set the hook. Wait for it. As soon as that hits, don't set, don't react. Whatever it is, coach yourself on that. So when it happens, you go, I mean, even I flinch because I'm not ready for it, even though I'm still telling myself, but you won't react and set that hook right away. What you need to do is wait until that fish turns, swims underwater, and you feel him swimming away with your lure. When you feel that, boom, then you pop them, and then you set the hook. But you have to have that discipline in order to do that. If you do that, you'll have more hookups and you'll catch a lot more fish. So those are the tips I have for fishing buzzbaits. I hope it works for you. For more tips and tricks like this, visit bassresource.com.